Hello, welcome Kickstarter family to a first ever look at the brand new dungeon mechanic from Ascendancy Underworld, where we're going to talk about one of the premier add-ons included in the Ascendancy Underworld campaign. This is a brand new game mode for Ascendancy. It introduces a ton of new scenarios, each based on a bunch of different color-themed dungeons. So we're going to be looking at the white-themed dungeon here. This is the Forgotten Reliquary. So as you can see, this looks pretty similar to your starting map setup, except no map, right? Instead, you're starting with some landing tiles, and just like the base game, we are putting our little avatars in our starting landing space. And this is a single floating island you can imagine. This is depth 1 is the starting area, and then you can see we also have depth 2, which is a place that we will need to discover the corresponding entrance to those stairs. On the dungeon tiles themselves, you'll see a couple of important iconography. These are important to note, placeholder assets, but we have doors. Some doors will have costs, we have loyalty values, and we have name, tier, etc. So very similar to the start of the game for base Ascendancy, when you're playing dungeon mode, you're adding your player avatar to a room, and our normal location hexes are replaced with these room triangles. And you'll notice these scalloped edges around, and those are cut out so that we can very conveniently place settlements. You can control these edges, and when you do this, you're controlling any of the rooms that it's touching. Or alternatively, you can find, like here in our depth 2 landing, a staircase. We'll have ascending stairs as well as descending stairs. One of the things that we were going for with Ascendancy Underworld's dungeon mode is we wanted to really play into the move and adventure matters. So there's a lot more opportunities to move, there's a lot more things to engage with in the dungeon crawl than maybe you were used to from the base game map. So when you move, similar to the base game, you're going to target an empty area, and you can see that there's some loot available in the dangling space here. You're going to claim your loot token the way that you're used to. And then also like the base game, we have draw 2, place 1. So I'm going to look at the top 2 tiles from the depth 1 stack. And I get a choice here between the spike trap and the marble foyer. Now we have a base set of tiles that can go into every dungeon, as well as the color themed dungeons that are specific to the Forgotten Reliquary here. We're playing the white dungeon. So I'm going to choose, just as our example, the spike trap. Unlike in the base game, in Ascendancy Underworld, when you place a new tile, like our spike trap, we care about the alignment of the tile. So it can go attached like this, or like this, or like this. And there's a lot of different reasons that this alignment will matter. The first of which may be the door cost. So you'll notice some new icons on the doors here. We have blank doors in our landing. So a blank door is open, free move. You do not have to pay anything when you move through a blank door. But once you're on the other side, inside of a spike trap, in order to move through these doors, you're going to suffer some damage to a unit you control. And this is a requirement. So you have to have a unit in order to traverse this door, and that unit has to be able to suffer the damage. The base cost for most doors is 1 food, which is comparable to the base game. And for that reason, it still works with a lot of the original base game technologies and effects that reduce movement cost by 1 food. So when I'm in Spike Trap Room, I have a choice now. I can go into these 2 new rooms. In order to go here, I would have to suffer 2 damage. In order to go here, I would have to pay 1 food. As you'll see that these scalloped edges have different loyalty values. So when I control this little corner with my settlement piece, I now am gaining loyalty equal to the total that this settlement is touching. So here we have 2, 1, 1 for 4 total loyalty. However, if I had aligned like this, now this edge is worth 0 and this is only worth 3. So there's a lot of interesting strategic implications when you're playing, especially with multiple people, where you can affect other people's settlement values, especially with corners that add negative value. So in addition to loyalty value, door costs, another icon we care about are stairs. Some rooms are printed with a stair at one of the corners in place of a loyalty value. So when you have a stair like this, when you traverse, instead of moving through a door and paying a cost, you can alternatively move up to the stairs and you'll place a descending stair token. A descending stair token will always connect to an ascending stair token. As part of the setup, we set up our depth 2 landing. So if our Kojin Khan here was to choose to go through the descending stairs, he then comes out on depth 2. He gets to claim this nice little bonus of 2 renown tokens for being the first player to reach depth 2. And now, when you traverse this second little floating section of the dungeon map, you're only dealing with the depth 2 stack. And these rooms, you can imagine, are going to be a little bit more powerful. They're going to have more interesting effects. They're also going to have higher costs. Another bit of important iconography here, we see the searchables on our rooms. Each room has different special bonuses you can get when you search. Search kind of replaces the adventure mechanic for dungeon mode. So when you move adventure in the original game, you got some bonuses. Now when you move through the dungeon and adventure or search, you get bonuses depending on the types of units you control. So the idea behind this was we want to give you an alternative reason to control different types of units, even if you're not specializing in battle. So you care about having a might type unit or a cunning type unit, even if you're not focusing at all on battle. We're giving you alternative uses for your combat units. Specifically, when you search a room, this says if you control any might type unit, you get an ore resource. If you control any cunning type unit, you gain a food resource. Some of them are a little bit more interesting. Here we have, if you control any tier 2 champion, you get to bless any target. Bless is a new status effect that you may see in a future video. Because Sermon Hall has a stair and it's a depth 2 room, that means that you could, if this were connected, for example, like this, you could go down and this now becomes an entrance to depth 3, which would become a third floating island. However, if you were to align the room, the Sermon Hall, like this already has an ascending stair. And this is, you may be now seeing the chief reason that we've differentiated the 2 sculpts. So this stair only goes up. You can only go from 2 back to 1, which is here. You can now, because you put this here, you can no longer use this as a depth 3 entrance. So if you're playing a competitive mode, or if you're playing some cooperative mode where you're trying to stop somebody from getting down to depth 3, this is a reason you might want to do that. Similarly, you could place like this and then still block that stair with a settlement, and now all of a sudden you have a great reason to try and siege somebody's settlement if you really care about getting down to depth 3. So the strategic implications, the going up and down different depths, all of these things are going to matter depending on which scenario you're playing. We looked here at the white dungeon, Forgotten Reliquary. There is a color-themed dungeon for each color in the game, and all of them have novel mechanics. We didn't want to reveal those yet for the white dungeon, but some of them are going to have, maybe there's a monster chasing you, maybe you're trying to solve a riddle, maybe you're trying to collect a lost artifact and escape the dungeon with it. All of these different objectives are going to give you a ton of different reasons to interact with the map that we didn't have before in the base game, and we hope you love what we have in store for you here in Underworld. Ascendancy Underworld is a Kickstarter exclusive project. This game will not go to retail. Please pledge this campaign. This is how we make it. We've put together a ton of incredible content for you. We can't wait to show off more of it. The more support we have from you here on our crowdfunding campaign, the more we can show off, the more we can put into it. Thank you so much for following. Thank you so much for pledging. We'll see you soon.